Welcome to 221B Baker Street by way of the South Cape Bridge. I am your host, Zachary here, avid Sherlockian, and with me, once again, is someone soon becoming everyone's favorite regular, Jesse Jackson. No, not that one.
Thank you, Zach. Always a joy to be here talking about elementary, Sherlock, and just hanging out with you is always a blast.
Indeed. So, of course, we're talking about the episode To Catch a Predator, and we start with Watson helping Shinwell getting ready for a job interview.
Yeah, first off, I thought that was a great way to begin, with the shirt and the whole idea, and as someone who spent 9 months in an unplanned sabbatical, I can feel the frustration of trying to figure out, okay, trying to get a job, trying to, as she said, dress for the role you want, and feeling his frustration of, there's nothing I can do. So I thought this was a pretty interesting subplot, though when we get a little bit further, I'm going to have a little problem with Joan's thought process.
Yeah, well, as someone who works as a third shift security guard, I am also familiar with trying to find new work. And I thought it was a nice little scene. And, of course, any Sherlockian fans will know, we get the deer stalker.
How big was the smile on your face when you saw that and them talking about it?
Well, I thought they handled it better than Sherlock did, which found a way to actually get it on his head, even though that makes no sense.
I forgave them. I understand why you think that, but I
prefer this to that. I really do. I prefer this whole show to Sherlock. I really do. I've said that many times.
We will have to have a debate. I think they're different, and so
I don't even watch it anymore. That's how much I dislike it. As much as I like Benedict Cumberbatch, second season really did. Wait, was this a second? No, it's the third season. It really put me off.
Did you watch the Christmas special?
I've been meaning to watch the Victorian special. We should, there's a couple of things we need to. Well, I should get a round. Oh, that'd be great. Do a round table, but we're getting off on a tangent.
Okay, yes, but make a note of that. I would love to discuss that with you. We should watch it and have a special episode. Okay,
that would be a fun point counter. Well, actually, Jesse, we should have you and someone else. We need someone to cover Sherlock, so maybe we'll have you and someone else do it.
Okay, good. That sounds nice.
If we can get, well, you should see if you can find someone because I'd be more. Rob needs someone. So
okay,
but
good.
Moving. So we get now. I don't have the actor's name in front of me. I could take 2 seconds to look at it, but he's a good actor. He's really good at playing a creep. He's one of those actors that I'm sure in real life he's like the nicest freaking guy, but he plays creeps a lot.
So you're talking about the Philip character?
Yes, the character in the hotel.
No, Jack McGill, but his actual name is Philip Kasnoff.
There you go.
Yes.
We think it's bad. We think it's just a guy having an affair, and we find out pretty soon later on that it's worse. And while he's getting ready for his, and I'm doing air quotes now for those because this is audio, date.
Yes.
A man gets shot and comes hurtling through the window.
Yes. Okay, so a couple things to talk about first. The actor Philip Kasnoff played Sinatra in a miniseries several years ago.
Seriously?
Yes, he did. He was Sinatra in a miniseries. Really well done. But he goes all the way back to I want to get the years right. 1985 and 1986, he was Alanka Bent, and he was the major villain in that show against this is Patch. Darn it! I almost said a bad word. James Reed and Patrick Swayze were the two North and South, friends that they met in West Point. And this guy was their major adversary at West Point, and he continued. He played an evil, just sneaky, horrible sadist on that show. And so, and he, I'm sure he is, as you said, in real world, a really nice guy, but he is absolutely wonderful playing someone that is just evil and
I know he was just
despising.
in Luke Cage.
Yes. Uh,
So
yeah, absolutely. And, he was in, Dollhouse. He's been he's a very busy actor. And when you see him in this, you immediately, what they used to have that website. Oh, that guy, right? And
well, that's what I hope to be someday. That guy. Hey, it's the
yes,
guy from. Yes. So he's very now. This is actually the scene after when they're standing over the body. This is the if people who tuned in to last episode said I got something that I want to talk about this time. You remember you were talking about how Sherlock, like, how did he get to this point, right?
yes,
Well, they do something here that I thought has to be noted, and it's something really important that people have talked about when it comes to Sherlock Holmes. He looks at the body and says, "Oh, this man is a child predator. He's He preys on young girls. He's blah, blah, blah," and Bell's like, "Huh?" And we find out later that his deduction is completely wrong.
yes.
And I think that's relevant because Sherlock doesn't. What he does is there's actually a really funny video I've mentioned a couple times on the podcast done by Pete Holmes, who's got some good stuff in his tool belt, and he does this thing making fun of the BBC Sherlock of the scene where he first meets Watson, and he does all the deductions, and Watson just goes, "Not one single thing you just said is true," and they make fun of the fact that really, and it's true. Of course, that they can write it so Sherlock's right, which is why I think it's great they have him get it wrong. Because the deductions it's not like a psychic vision. He could be wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm so glad you brought that up. What Sherlock does in the books and the movies and the TV shows, the idea is I view these things, I get the knowledge, I understand, all these clues, and I put together a hypothesis that I am, and depending on the thing, it could be 75 to 95%, but it is a guess. It is a very informed, logical guess, but it is a guess. And I think it serves the character well if every once in a while it gets where he's wrong.
Indeed, exactly. And we'll go into one more into why he's one little wrong a little later. So from there he tells you that there was a string of people who got beat up and tied up with the same zip tie, but those people were all they were all child predators. They all were catfished. I still don't know why they used that word for that term, but they are catfished into being lured, thinking they're going to have sex with a young girl, and instead they find someone else. So Sherlock is guessing that this is another one of that man's victims, that because of his size, again, a wrong deduction, because of his size, that the killer this time brought a gun and something went wrong.
Right.
So they go to Novak and talks to the wife, says, "No, there's no way my husband was not a child." And they bring up the young girls. And it's so funny. This is one of those scenes where it's fun to rewatch. Because the brother here it's like, you jerk.
Yes.
But when he's like, "Yeah, I suspected it. You want the pictures of the girls? I confront him in this neck." It's like, you lying son of a... Although the thing is, it's like, you'd think they'd be... I understand they have to ask her about it, but it's like, hey, guess what? Your husband might be a predator. We haven't fully proven that yet, but still, we wanted to bring that up to you.
Yeah, I love that, right? Hey, it may happen, and just the broad of that, just the mention of that could cause, problems forever. And
that becomes relevant with one of the suspects.
Yes.
Although, would you want to be the cop to go to that wife later? Because spoiler, it turns out he wasn't. It's just like, hey, guess what?
Yeah. That kind of thing that we did, maybe not so much.
Right. So they find out that man Novak had pictures of young girls on the computer. He swore they were college-age girls, and she sort of believed him, and they're trying to there's not really a lot of clues there. The brother tells him, "Oh, I confronted him about it, but he swore up and down." And then she said she suspected him of an affair, but she still trusted him. So from there, Sherlock goes to the company that, an obvious reference to several dating sites and Ashley Madison, because it's called True Romantic, and we get this sleazy boss that refuses to release the information. And I love how he's defending the pervert. He's like, "Oh, they're probably not perverts."
Yeah. And there is that line, I wanted to tell the guy who's calling his wife from the sleazy no-tell motel, okay, that's a bad idea to call your wife. Actually call from your office if you're going to do this. Not that I know how to have an affair. All my knowledge is based on watching TV shows. But it does seem like this is
your wife in the room? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is. As you said, it does seem like really this is what you're doing, and what's going on with this. So yeah, I really liked this where they were talking about it. Go.
Yeah, the way he's defending him, but then Sherlock notices this girl who becomes very relevant later. We'll talk about that when we get to it. He believes again. Actually, look, this is in a way another wrong deduction. He thinks she was listening in because she wanted to help.
Yeah,
and he notices she hates her job and she actually does help him. But we learned out later. It's just she helped him not to look suspicious. But she hates him, and she hates everyone there. And we find out later it's very relevant that she hates everyone there.
Yes.
So she asks for information. It looks more likely she's going to give it to him. So from there, we go to the brownstone. Watson comes in, meets Shinwell. Big surprise, the job didn't go well. Although I bet if Sherlock really wanted to, they could find a job. I mean, come on. They don't know anyone who's on a regular who's an ex-con who's hiring. I mean, I understand the reasons why, because they need his plot to go a certain way, but they could have found something for him.
Thank you. Okay, first off, I think this is a horrible decision to teach him how to be a detective. Because, first off, is there really that good of money in it?
That totally depends on the skill of the detective.
Right.
My problem is I don't have a problem with her suggesting that. My problem is she's suggesting it. There's nothing at this point that suggests it. Now, while it's true, she brings up Kitty. The whole reason Sherlock picked Kitty was because she actually showed to be have the beginnings of a good investigator. She had the drive. She just needed focus and training. Shinwell, it looks like he wants to change, but he didn't give. Now, you know what? I just realized they could have saved this with one little thing. They should have had him find his daughter on his own.
Yes. Okay. I like that.
That could have been oh, look, the way you found your daughter, but you didn't and it shows you're a good person. You could, I don't have a problem with her wanting to train Shinwell. I have a problem at doing it at this point. There's no indication that he's a good detective. And although it does give an indication that Sherlock believes in fate and destiny, but like he says, and he takes that very seriously. I you know what the one that comes to mind is back in it was either season 2, maybe. I think it was season 2. It's when Bell gets or was it 3? It was one of those. It was when Bell gets shot.
Yeah.
And there's one I watched this episode several times, mostly because of this scene. There's that great scene where Sherlock just almost yells at Bell. He's like, "Because I have faith in you, I have faith on this." And he tells him it's you're a detective, yeah, but it's more than that. It's a calling. It's your calling, and he takes that very, very seriously.
Yes, and I guess that's my worry, is that. And not even worry, my nitpick is, and you've said it very well, why does she think, what drives her to think this is a good solution? He's shown nothing, yeah. There is just no reason to do this, and I just think, I did not like this storyline. I didn't like that she was... Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say it's like she again. Even Shin, when she brings up the Bensoners problem, but even Shinwell just said he didn't deduce anything. He just talked to a guy.
Yeah. And you're like, why are we wanting to do? I just didn't get it. And I'm going, what are you trying to solve? I also think a wonderful point, Zach, is as many people as they know. How could you not find someone or know someone that that owes you a favor? And can you have him be, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but someone in the mailroom or someone in the janitorial staff or just customer service, some kind of job, a waiter, busboy, whatever you want, a job to get them started. But instead, they do nothing. And
Sherlock could just be like, "Here's $5,000. Go ahead."
Yeah, and then, so anyway, I was unhappy with that a lot.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hoping is, because this show's really good at that, where his story's gonna go will help fix that. Because the show is really good. Because they very rarely have a point that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, good point.
Well, we'll talk about it would be better if I talk about it when we get to the end scene. But okay, so like Sherlock, big surprise, obviously thinks it's a bad idea because I love the scene where he's like you talk about Kitty, and like even she says she didn't quite, even Kitty didn't work out. Like she's like, well, Kitty had baggage. Again, Johnny's delivery of this line when he says, when Watson goes, she had baggage, and he goes, and he doesn't.
Yeah. So awesome.
So from there, we go to Sherlock is trying to find a suspect, and he's actually going after the men that were victimized because he got the information, and like two of them, one committed suicide, one's in prison, two fled the country. I believe that's. Oh, but there was one that then they talked about the one that was in a lawsuit and he lost because of that. So they're trying to figure out the answer. And then when he shows Watson the picture, she's like, "Wait a minute, you mean these?" And it turns, and from there we realize that he was the predator, he was not one of the people. I know. I kind of, I don't know. I didn't guess that, but I did guess that when they started saying that, I guess at the beginning that the guy at the beginning he was coming after him.
Yes.
So I thought it was weird that Gregson was trying. It felt out of place when Gregson's like, "Oh, he's probably just this," and it's like, nope. Moving on.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just okay. But again, the actor, like who we were just talking about, he's so good at playing the pathetic guy. Just like, but I loved her. It's like, you want to just punch him.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's like, it's a figment. You can't go to jail from wanting to make love to a figment. Oh, it's like, oh, I love how Gregson immediately makes the deal with him, which we found out later is because they don't have to. He can just report him on the other charges, and
right.
So technically, he's still keeping his word. But the guy tells him that obviously they don't think he's the killer because you would have to, like you said, you have to be an idiot to book the room and then kill him. So they're trying to get the information, but it turns out he did see something because he actually was gonna. And everyone get prepared to have your skin crawl. Videotape the experience.
Yeah, this guy is so creepy and just so. And this is that. There was the famous, the NBC show To Catch a Predator, right, where they were just showing this.
Yeah.
And it just the whole thing, disgust me.
Oh God!
And it just—I
would hope so.
Yeah, it is, and yeah.
We both just go, yeah.
So
it turns out there's the video evidence shows someone pulling out. So they're trying to investigate it. So they decide to go after one of the guys, the victim, and the guy swears. And I'll talk more about this a little later when we get more information on the show. He talks about how. He says he never was in the young girls, although he says he didn't harass the woman. And Sherlock, I love when Sherlock goes, "Oh, good, that's a lie. I was afraid you were impossible to read."
Yes, that is a wonderful
That almost
line.
made that almost made favorite line. I probably should have made a favorite line, but
Yes, I
so
agree.
he tells them that he never had a true man, and he does make a good point. I mean, he would have to be a freaking idiot, he's such a he was a high profile person to look for young girls in public forums. I keep thinking of the South Park episode where you ever see the Nambla South Park episode?
Yes.
Yeah, which there's this great. I would probably say half that stuff on the podcast. Although, little side note because of how disgusting these people are. When that episode first aired, I didn't know Nambla was a real thing.
Yeah.
When I found out, like a couple years later, someone's like, "Oh, that's real." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And there are people who try to justify, like, "Oh, we're in love in ancient times." It's like, shut up.
Yes.
But anyways, they talk. The guy tells me he was trapped. And they knew something's up, so they don't know if they believe him 100%. So they start to look into it, and they find out they break the password on the guy's computer. Turns out he had one more profile, which was. Now I think it would have been interesting if it turns out there was because they don't use. I mean, they've done it in Law and SVU, obviously, but you don't usually see female sexual predators on because it's obviously more rare than. I mean, it does happen, but it's more rare. But I think that would be interesting to have for an episode. I think
agree
most shows don't do it because people have a hard time believing a woman would do that.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
It does.
But anyways, it turns out that the profile, because it was weird, because the profile was of a legal age man, and it was actually the woman that the guy we just met was suing for sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And they're like, so you have a connection, or you must have. She's like, listen, I only did it to catch him. I didn't get a lot of money. So they realized she has no, again, and this episode really had a multitude of suspects.
Yes, they did. It was a really good mystery, and you're sitting there going, okay, I'm not sure where they're taking us, what we're going to do. So, and not as we talked about in the previous episode, sometimes Elementary can take you on a pretty wild tangent, and you start at point A and you end up at, point 7. I mean, it's not even on the same scale. This one was really well done, but it was a fairly consistent. We didn't take a wild change. We just went through a really winding and twisty discussion.
Yeah. So from there, we get Shinwell and Joan, and apparently Shinwell is echoing our sentiments when Joan says you should be a detective.
Yeah, he's like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, so I like that a lot.
Well, another way it could be explained, like, because Joan wants to help him so bad, like because again, even Joan can't be always right about, just like Sherlock can't be always right about cases, Joan can't always be right about humans.
Yes, I agree.
That could be that's a great way to look at it.
Yes, it is.
So Shinwell always says no. Although there's something I want to touch upon later with that. But so go back to Sherlock. He's doing his whole pretending, and this is actually something that's like something they did on the BBC Sherlock. That Holmes is really good. Like, he knows what to say to get everyone on his side, and Watson's like, that's terrible, and he's like, well, it isn't. This almost made favorite lines too. She was a part of. But it was a little too long. But it was like she was part of the Ayn Rand Society, but she left because it was too charitable. And if anyone knows Ayn Rand, you know why that's funny.
It is very funny, yes.
Yeah. So he gets the names of the investment group, and it turns out the Novak's wife's brother, the fun guy we met earlier, was one of the people in the investment firm, which is an interesting little coincidence. So they confront him, and it's revealed that and they say to him, you knew what your brother was doing, and like, you leapt at the chance of paying him as a sexual predator to get guilt off of you. So this probably means you killed him. And I love this when he says no. And again, this is another thing Elementary does very well. It's like, he's not the killer because he was doing something else that was criminal.
Yeah.
So he needed Novak alive, and he was going to use him again.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, and not to get too political, but a few years ago, Baylor down here had a coach that was trying to blame a dead student, trying to put things that they were doing on him, and So it's horrible, but at the same time, if you're going to be an evil genius or an evil idiot, that you could see how, okay, yeah, well, I'll just use this to kind of cover my own sins. And it's horrible, but there you go, right?
Yeah, it's just crazy. And then I know it's they don't really need to have it. I would have loved to have seen this. Like, I would have liked the sister to be there, because imagine her finding out that that her husband's not a. Oh, and I should make mention of how when Sherlock believed the predator was the killer, he said, if it hadn't been for the killing, I probably would have left this guy alone. Which shows that Sherlock, obviously we know Sherlock believes in bending law, but for some reason, although we have seen him almost kill, but he believed, I really hope they delve more into this one day in an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where Sherlock, why does his line go here? Where does his morals come from? Because we know it doesn't come from Dad.
Right.
I mean, because his dad is amoral, very amoral, not evil, just neutral.
Yeah, the end justifies the means, and whatever you have to do to protect his interests, it's almost like that. I'm just protecting my family, and so therefore I can do anything I want to protect that.
Indeed. Now, by the way, I did like how Sherlock had overdue library books.
Yes, and he had to pay the fine. Oh, and I just pictured,
which is a pittance to a trust fund kid.
Yeah, but I would have loved to seen that, having to do that, and I'm like, okay, yes, all right, and just this disdain of having to worry about something so minutia, yeah, minor. Like, come on. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think is interesting to note is it turns out that guy was telling the truth. He never went after a young girl. But so he lost his family, his job, and everything. But it seems like it was true that he was sexually harassing the woman. So whether or not he deserved what happened to him, we could debate for an hour.
Right.
I mean, men like that are scum, and we have one like that for president. But moving on.
Whoa, there we go.
Moving on.
Yes.
So they start looking to who else could have, and they look into the only two men in the victim pool that, even though they were out of the country, could have physically done it, and they actually, sadly, find the name of one of the victims, and it turns out, again, like how Sherlock said, it's someone I liked, it's someone early episode. It turns out the girl from before is actually, what was his name? Fitzhugh's victims, and the whole reason is she killed Novak because of what he did. The guy left the country, so he'll never really face justice.
Right.
And I love this actress. I don't know if she's done a lot, but oh god, this scene was so just something. And when she's talking about how he wasn't afraid of him, and he actually felt bad for her, that made it worse, and that's why she killed him. That was something. And this is another thing the show does really good, but this is the first time they've done it this season, is you have complete sympathy for this killer.
Yes, you do. And I liked that.
Yeah, and they do this sometimes in Sherlock, but this is the first time this season, and I mean, it's one of those things where you would hope that she can kind of get up for psychological reasons, but turns out she's the killer, sadly. I mean, not much gratification there.
Right.
But you find out Sherlock, because he's lost criminals to non-extradition companies before, that he made arrangements to have Fitzhugh arrested for drugs.
Yes.
In a country that, you're going away for life. Right. And Watson doesn't even object. Now, here's the thing. My own personal philosophy of this is, I in a perfect world, I don't mind when the authorities bend rules to catch bad guys. The problem is, you can't always trust the authorities will only use that on the bad guys. That's the problem with it. But if someone told me, like, oh yeah, this child molester fell down, convicted, definitely did it, fell down the stairs at the precinct, I'd be like, well, stuff happens.
Yeah. And
it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but the problem is, right, the gray area. How are we going?
What I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. It's not that, like, There's so many different examples I can use, but it's like I just said. It's not because you can't trust people to only do this to the guilty.
Right.
They'll do it to people they think might be guilty. I mean, we could just bring up Guantanamo Bay. How many people are sitting in there right now that have absolutely zero connection to terrorism?
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I find it interesting, and of course Watson doesn't even bat an eye. But I don't ever promise it. So from there, and I do like how Sherlock gets some justice. I can almost picture him going to the prison and telling her that he did it.
Yes.
So from there, we go to Shinwell's place, and it turns out he's got something going on. Now, we don't know what, but something. And this is the real reason he turned down Watson's offer to train him.
Yes. And it's very sad for me because, I'm really hoping that he can turn his life around. But it goes back to, his family member when he said he's a bad dude. And, and I am worried that Joan's faith is going to be wrong, that she has put it in the wrong person.
Well, see, I was thinking about that, and I don't know if they're going to go the whole route that he's really bad and she's let down, because that's cliche, and this show does not do cliche.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see I'm very interested to see where they're going to go with this.
Yeah. So
it's definitely got me interested.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of the case. I'll do there was too many to choose from, but the favorite line I picked was, I'd go so far as to call him a masturbator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my final thoughts on this episode is I liked it a lot. It had a lot of suspects, and it was very, I love a good crime when I have sympathy for the revealed killer, and I like how interesting the victim was. There was so many layers to the crime and different stuff to it, and I even think it had pretty good rewatch value. And again, yeah, like we talked about, the only thing I really didn't like was, again, I don't have a problem with Watson offering Shinwell being a detective. I just think they could have done more to have a reason for her to offer that. It was bit plot device-ish, and I hate to say that about something from the show. But overall, I would definitely give this episode good marks, and I'd give it high rewatch value.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good episode, and I'm glad that we're getting a little bit more with Joan's kind of stray puppy that she's picked up. Shinwell, I'm curious to see what he's doing. So, I would give this another consistent, and I apologize, listeners, but...
Oh, God. What are you going to do?
8 nose trimmers. Because this was fun, and this was... And an episode about child predators should not be... I'm not saying that was fun. I'm saying the case was fun, and the interactions, and just good stuff. I'm
surprised. Okay, here's what Jesse should have used. 8 zip ties, 8 deerstalker hats.
Well, I was going to use the deerstalker hat, but I figured you would roll your eyes at that.
Oh, but the freaking nose trimmer. I don't gotta roll my... Or how about... why don't you go all the way? 8 fake true romantic profiles.
Yeah, 8 online romances. Absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
God. I could just use one, but...
Okay.
Well, not like that. Just
no, I understand.
Okay, just want to make sure I don't need a headline tomorrow on the web. A podcaster, with my luck, that's what I'm known for. There's a freaking trending headline. Podcaster says he wants to be seduced by underage girls. Like, I did not say that.
That is not what I said. Absolutely, very cool.
Oh wait, 8 pervert boats.
Yeah. Yes. Very nice.
That sounds like a really bad adult film.
Yes, it does.
Pervert Boat 7.
Yeah, that's scary. All right.
So where can they find you, Jesse?
They can find me at Jesse Jackson, DFW. You can also hear me talk about Bruce Springsteen and music on Set Lusting Bruce, and I talk about Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. And yourself, sir, where can they find you?
Well, you can always find me on Facebook, and of course, Twitter, Instagram Insanity. And as always on any connection to any of the podcasts I do for Southgate Media. And you can always contact me into my Instagram, Sandy Webisodes, which more will be coming on that soon.
Awesome.
All right, so that's it for this week, everyone. Tune in next time, but we have to depart for the game is afoot.